Welcome to A Moment of Zen. Time to sit back and relax as model, actress, mentor, and supermom Zen Sams takes you on a sexy and wild ride, covering the latest in film, fashion, pop culture, cryptocurrency, FinTech, cannabis, and entertainment from the millennial mom's perspective. Here's your host, Zen Sams.
Welcome back, beautiful tri-state area. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Welcome to episode 210, celebrating 5 years on the air. Here's to another exciting episode. It's such a pleasure to spend my time with you on the airwaves. Thank you for tuning in every Saturday night and then engaging with me on social media. That truly does make it all worthwhile. Please continue to follow me at Zen Sams on Instagram. That's Zen with an X, not a Z, XENSAMS. And remember that all episodes of A Moment of Zen are available on our YouTube channel. We upload Sundays at 2 p.m. via digital streaming. And you can also check us out on your home TV platform at mox.yourhometv.com. In the influencer segment brought to you by the New Jersey Fieldhouse, where champions are built and futures are shaped. Today, we're diving into the high-stakes world of competition, strategy, and resilience with none other than Chris Allen, one of the breakout stars of $1 Million Secret, which is Netflix's latest reality sensation. We're going to break down the mindset of an overachiever, the role of discipline in success, and how competition can be a powerful force in shaping our lives. We're chatting Mastering the Mind Game with Chris Allen on $1 Million Secret, high-stakes competition, and winning in life. In our Going Deep segment brought to you by CO2 Lift in our Expert on the Microphone series, today we're joined by the powerhouse husband-wife duo, Dr. Stephen Dayan and Dr. Sabrina Fabi. They're quite the impressive pair. Together, they're going to join me to discuss their latest venture, XOMD Skincare. It's the First Moodceutical Skincare Line. They're here to discuss the mind-skin connection and break down the most exciting technologies and advancements in the aesthetic industry today. In the Polished Beauty segment, as always, we're joined by my brilliant co-contributor, Dr. Daisy Aim. She's a triple board certified cosmetic surgeon and OBGYN and founder of the Polished Beauty podcast. We're going to be joined by our expert on the microphone, board certified psychiatrist, researcher, and award-winning mental health advocate, Dr. Judith Joseph, chatting her new book, High Functioning, Overcoming Your Hidden Depression and Reclaiming Your Joy, that hit shelves April 8th, and it's already making waves. In our FinTech TV exclusive segment, Newsmax CEO Christopher Ruddy discusses their IPO and the company's plans to innovate the media landscape. Stay tuned for Chris Allen up next in the influencer segment brought to you by the New Jersey Fieldhouse. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Once Upon a Coconut.
Discover the refreshing taste of 100% pure coconut water that actually tastes great. Naturally sweet with no artificial flavors or added sugar. It's packed with electrolytes to keep you hydrated throughout your day. And with 10% of profits going to charity, every sip makes a difference. Pure taste, pure goodness. Experience nature's Gatorade. Visit Once Upon a Coconut or naturesgatorade.com.
Welcome back, beautiful tri-state area. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Welcome back to the influencer segment brought to you by the New Jersey Fieldhouse, where champions are built and futures are shaped. Today, we're diving into the high-stakes world of competition, strategy, and resilience with none other than Chris Allen, one of the breakout stars of $1 Million Secret, Netflix's latest reality sensation. It's a game of wit, deception, and endurance. This show throws 12 strangers into a luxury estate where one of them secretly holds $1 million. Their mission? Keep it hidden at all costs. But Chris wasn't just another contestant. His background in corporate finance, combined with an Ivy League education and a deep commitment to mental and physical wellness, made him uniquely prepared for the psychological warfare of the game. Beyond the reality TV drama, Chris is passionate about helping others achieve success, whether it's in business, personal growth, or staying mentally and physically sharp under pressure. Today, we're breaking down the mindset of an overachiever, the role of discipline in success, and how competition can be a powerful force in shaping our lives. We're chatting mastering the mind game, high stakes competition, and winning in life. Welcoming now to the show is New Jersey's very own Chris Allen. Welcome to the show, superstar.
Great to be here.
I'm so excited to have you on. So let's dive right in because I know people are just eager to really understand the motivation behind everything you do. Let's chat adapting to high stakes environments, which seems to be exactly what you've done. So from going from the structured world of finance and academia to the unpredictable landscape of reality TV, that's no small leap. Studies show that high achievers who embrace unpredictability are about 40% more likely to develop advanced problem-solving skills. And $1 Million Secret is nothing if not unpredictable. So how did your background in finance and business strategy prepare you for the mind games of $1 Million Secret?
Well, I think I was really blessed to have gotten the opportunity to be on $1 Million Secret because the game was sort of the ultimate test of all of the things that I had learned in the business world up until that point. Entrepreneurship was sort of the ultimate battlefield. I think every single day as an entrepreneur, you deal with the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. You wake up every single morning not necessarily knowing what that day has that day has to be ahead of you. And then going into $1 Million Secret, every possible high stakes, high stress situation was something that was presented to us on an hour to hour basis. So I think being an entrepreneur really tested me and trained me to be agile, to think in different ways, to be analytical, to read people, to influence others. And it was really fun to have applied the lessons of being an entrepreneur to playing this high stakes, high stress game that now the world has gotten to be able to see.
That makes total sense. It's like playing chess in real time, anticipating moves, controlling perception, and staying one step ahead. So your ability to adapt under pressure must have been a huge advantage, right? Now let's chat the psychology of competition and overachievers. So some people shy away from competition and others thrive in it. Studies show that overachievers tend to view competition as a form of self-improvement rather than just winning or losing. What was the driving force per se behind that competitive mindset? Have you always been like that? How has that drive helped you both in business and even in $1 Million Secret?
Yeah, I actually draw a lot of parallels to how I felt and how I played the game $1 Million Secret to how I felt as an athlete growing up. And for me, my competitive mindset was honed on the athletic field. I was the son of a college athlete. I played all sorts of sports growing up, and obviously, was very competitive in doing so. I think I felt competitive from an early age, and that was really the environment that I had that in. As an adult, as an entrepreneur, as a business person, I think a lot of times you do have to kind of curb that natural competition and sort of be collaborative and work with others and, find healthy ways to channel your competitiveness because a lot of times it's not necessarily received so well. In $1 Million Secret, I felt the competitive juices flowing the way I hadn't felt them since I had been an athlete as a child.
Wow.
Because of such a competitive environment, such a competitive field, and we competed on a daily basis. So it was exciting to feel those feelings again and also track the arc of how I've developed and changed. And frankly, watching the series back, I look at it as an example of ways that I can continue to grow. The way that the competition, the competitiveness came out, I'm like, yeah, I think that there's still growth for me as a person, having seen how that sort of high stakes environment brought out different characteristics.
That's such an important perspective. First of all, we never stop growing, right? We always know enough to know that we don't know everything. And competition isn't just about beating others. It's about pushing yourself to being better, stronger, and sharper. And in a game like this, that mindset could make or break your success. So let's chat discipline, consistency, that winning formula, right? Studies do show that people who stick to their disciplined routines are like 45% more likely to achieve their goals than those who rely solely on motivation. And that applies to fitness, to business, and even reality TV strategy. So what role did discipline and consistency play in preparing you for the pressures of both entrepreneurship and being on $1 Million Secret?
I think that there's a lot of similarities between the two, entrepreneurship and then being in a high stakes reality competition. Both of them are really high variance emotional environments. So being an entrepreneur, obviously you have the highest of highs and the lowest of lows, right? what I think discipline and consistency plays into that is that you need to find some way to bring it back to level. And for me, those things would be, mindfulness, physical fitness, and then obviously things that I enjoy, hobbies outside of my entrepreneurial pursuits. So those things would ground me. They would bring me back to level, and they would sort of level out sort of the variability of being an entrepreneur. In $1 Million Secret, we were filming most of the day, right? So it was really hard to build in discipline and consistency. What I found to help bring me back to level was writing. I kept copious notes of what I was doing, and that became sort of a nighttime routine for me to kind of wind down from a really high stress day. And it's also served as a nice memento for me to look back and think, what was I was thinking during the sort of defining life experience?
That's so true. And whether it's training for a marathon or running a business or competing on a reality show, discipline is what separates the contenders from the champions, right?
Absolutely.
So, mental toughness in high stress situations. Okay. So, one thing that separates top performers in any field is their ability to stay mentally strong when things get tough. We know that elite competitors train their minds just as much as their skills, building resilience to handle that high pressure situation. So, what were some of the most mentally challenging moments on $1 Million Secret, and how did you keep your emotions in check?
Yeah, I think coming into the house and $1 Million Secret, I thought that my experience as an entrepreneur would really help me develop, portray and exhibit mental toughness. But the game stretched us beyond the limits of what I was prepared for. Looking back on it, I don't know that I necessarily did the best job. And I think that there's a lot of ways that I can continue to improve from this experience. But what I will say is the scar tissue of having been through high stress situations, been in the boardroom, been in difficult conversations with investors, VCs, things like that, really helped me because ultimately I've developed this sort of mental rigor of what do I do when I feel a certain way? How do I bring it back to level? How do I continue to portray calmness and, stability when you're in a difficult situation? With that said, looking back on the experience, I still have more to learn. I think that will continue to benefit me as I go forward.
Now I want to move on to physical wellness and performance. When you look at people who exercise regularly, who commit to a sport, that improves cognitive function alone by up to 30%. It boosts decision making, reaction time. There's stress management involved in all this, which is essential in both business and high stakes competition. So how has your dedication to fitness and wellness helped you maintain that peak performance? I know you said your dad was an athlete, but whether in business or reality TV or even everyday life, I'm sure it all ties together for you.
Yeah, I mean, fitness and physical wellness is a way of training your mind for the sport of business. I think that that's something that anybody who tries to balance those two things would agree with. But what I really liked about maintaining a physical wellness regimen while being an entrepreneur is that there is no way to cheat physical wellness, right? The results are the results. The work that you put in, the inputs equal the outputs. And a lot of times in entrepreneurship, it's not a fair game. Sometimes in $1 Million Secret, it's not a fair game. But in physical wellness, a lot of times it is a fair game, right? The inputs that you put in equal the output. So I really like that. If I want results in my physical and mental wellness, I have to put in the work in order to achieve them. There's no way for me to skirt around it or cheat.
Yeah, success is holistic. You can't perform at your best mentally if you're not taking care of yourself physically. I mean, it's common sense. Now let's chat lessons from this reality TV for real life. So it's come on. I mean, like it's a lot of pressure, very quick thrust into the spotlight. Reality TV is often seen as just entertainment, but there are real world lessons hidden in the chaos, and the ability to read people, to think on your feet, and adapt to unexpected challenges. Those are skills that really translate far beyond the screen. So, what was the biggest lesson you took away from $1 Million Secret that you think applies to everyday life?
My biggest lesson and takeaway from $1 Million Secret is actually a really positive one because our game is a brutal game and it requires you to lie in order to succeed. So I thought I was going to come away with the lessons of, wow, people can be really devious, people can be really backstabbing, but it actually encouraged me to look for the good in people because when I looked at this is a game where we had to lie in order to succeed. But for the most part, what I saw is that we actually wanted to play honestly. We wanted to play with integrity. We wanted to win while maintaining our personal values for the most part. And those who did have to lie in order to win really struggled with it. So it's encouraged me to sort of look for the good in people and maybe have a bit more of a positive outlook than maybe you would have thought so if you read the log line of the show.
That's such a powerful takeaway. So let's chat. What's next? You've conquered the world of finance, built businesses, and now made a name for yourself in reality TV. Your journey proves that success isn't a straight line. It's about taking bold chances and trusting the process. So what's next? Are you looking to stay in entertainment, or are there any other cool projects on the horizon?
Absolutely would love to stay in entertainment. The process and experience of going on and sharing $1 Million Secret with the world has been, for me, the honor of a lifetime. But one of the great things about being on reality television is that it allows you a platform to connect with like-minded individuals. And oftentimes those that follow you and want to follow your journey are doing so because they're interested in what you're interested in. So for me, as a creator that now has a bit more of a platform, I'm excited to help bring others along on the journey of business ownership. It's really hard. And I think a lot of times it can be a very isolating experience. My passion is around creating communities to help people pursue entrepreneurship in a sustainable way for their physical and mental wellness. And I'm going to use my platform to do that.
That's exciting and so humble of you. Whether it's reality TV or your business mindset or your wellness mindset, whatever you take on next, I have no doubt you'll approach it with the same strategic mindset and competitive drive that's gotten you this far. So kudos to you, my friend.
It was a pleasure.
And so for those of you that want to follow him, you definitely want to check him out on Instagram. He's very active. Check out his social at CallenND, CALLENND. Thank you for joining us. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. That wraps up today's influencer segment brought to you by the New Jersey Fieldhouse. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by the Fieldhouse in Northvale, New Jersey, a vibrant and fresh take on youth and adult sports and family fun, and home to the New Jersey Thunder softball program. Plan unforgettable birthday parties or private events, or explore camps and programs that keep kids active and inspired. Take time for yourself in adult leagues or rent a field or court with friends. From a cutting-edge gaming cave to hitting and pitching centers and top-tier sports instructors, the Fieldhouse is reigniting the next generation of play. Head to njfieldhouse.com.
Welcome back, beautiful tri-state area. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Up next in the Going Deep segment brought to you by CO2 Lift. In our Expert on the Microphone series, today we're joined by the powerhouse husband-wife duo, Dr. Stephen Dayan and Dr. Sabrina Fabi. Dr. Dayan is a facial plastic surgeon, clinical assistant professor, researcher, and best-selling author with top doc recognition by numerous organizations. Dr. Fabi is a renowned board-certified dermatologist ranking in the top 5 of Newsweek's 2023 list of America's best cosmetic dermatologists. She's also an associate research director, has authored over 210 publications and lectures across the world on aesthetic dermatology advancements. They're quite the impressive pair. Together, they're going to join me to discuss their latest venture on XOMD Skincare, the First Moodceutical Skincare Line. They're here to discuss the mind-skin connection and break down the most exciting technologies and advancements in the aesthetic industry today. Welcome to the show, superstars.
Hi, Zen. How are you? Nice to see you.
So we're going to dive right in. Studies show a strong link between the mind, emotions, and overall skin health. For example, stress hormones like cortisol worsen dryness, wrinkles, and acne. And on the other hand, as a plastic surgeon, you offer aesthetic procedures which can not only transform your patient's appearance, but also how they feel. Now, after an aesthetic procedure, a patient's confidence has the ability to lower inflammation in the body by decreasing those cortisol levels and in turn, decreasing the inflammatory process. Now, Dr. Dayan, I know this is your area of expertise. Tell me, what inspired you to explore the psychosocial dermal axis? And can you tell us more about the transformative effects of understanding that mind-skin connection?
Zen, it's a great question. And it's really been mine and Sabrina's North Star as we developed this Moodceutical, because we've always recognized that when we're in the clinic, you can give a person a perfect outcome. You can make them physically beautiful, but they may not be satisfied. They may not be completely happy. So what else is it? And early on in my career, I realized there's something more to beauty, and that's the ability to feel beautiful, which is more important than looking beautiful. And as we move forward in creating a skincare product line, we wanted to make sure we were addressing that component.
It's very symbiotic, this relationship that not only that you have between the mind-body connection, but between the two of you. So I'm going to pivot to Dr. Fabi. You and Dr. Dayan founded XOMD, which focuses on exactly what we're talking about and is the first moodceutical skincare line to hit the markets. And I read that the idea for XOMD first took shape when you were pregnant with your son, Mateo, trying to bottle up that pregnancy glow. I love this story. Can you tell us more about the science behind XOMD's Moodceuticals and how oxytocin is at its core?
Well, oxytocin is actually, Zen, our number one antioxidant at the level of the skin. You really rely on oxytocin. This is the reason why when someone's pregnant, when someone's in love, you can see that they're glowing, that they look almost a little bit more youthful, that their skin looks a little bit more supple. People may comment, gosh, what are you doing? Or have you met someone, or are you in love? It's like that look of love. And I definitely noticed in my personal experience when I was pregnant, like I almost looked a little bit younger. And so that really made us both, explore this hormone that we naturally secrete and to see why hasn't anyone come up with something like this. Now, historically, you can get it from a drug, but can there be something topically that we can apply through botanical extracts like jasmine that can naturally make this product be excreted in our skin? And we were able to formulate something that in a double-blinded placebo-controlled trial was able to prove that it could be done.
What people don't realize, and even doctors don't realize that, is that your skin communicates with your environment, and your skin and your brain have this access that goes back and forth, all at a subconscious level. Oxytocin is very unique because when it goes up in your skin, when you hug someone, when you cuddle someone, when a mother and baby bond, the oxytocin levels go up in the skin, but then it causes a positive biofeedback loop with your brain, and your brain then releases more oxytocin. Your plasma levels will go up of oxytocin, and overall you get this euphoria. You feel better, and we capture that in a bottle.
And I understand that these products are clinically proven, and you conducted these double-blind, placebo-controlled, randomized crossover trials that you just mentioned to further validate their effectiveness. So I love that things are clinically verified in research. Now, Dr. Dayan, can you share some of the key findings from the trial and explain why it's so important to offer products that are not only dermatologist developed, but also backed by rigorous clinical research?
Many doctors have skincare lines, but very few actually formulate their own and then study it and test it to such rigorous standards. And I believe that that's really something we should all do. And that was something we had to do in order to put our name on it. So we did that strict trial. And afterwards, what did we find out? Well, it was really interesting because we showed improvement in skin quality. And we can prove that in things like radiance, dewiness, better hydration, less redness, more skin tone evenness. And that was against placebo, which had no improvement. We also looked at confidence. Confidence went up 60% at 4 weeks, 86% improvement in confidence at 8 weeks. Then we looked at things like first impressions. If you wear this product, you project a better first impression. And things such as people look more attractive. They look more financially successful. They look 3 years younger. And then the last thing we looked at, we put a pheromone type product in there. So I'm like, Sabrina, let's measure sexual satisfaction. She's like, no, we can't do that. I'm like, please, let's measure sexual satisfaction. So we put in a validated scale, which is a very rigorous benchmark. And what we find, yes, people who were in our clinical trial, statistically significant improvement in sexual satisfaction, 18 out of 20 categories. Placebo, 0. That was so
Wow.
going back to the statistician, like, are you sure you didn't make a mistake? Because we both do clinical trials to see data that's so different between placebo. We're like, we got something.
We always have a placebo effect, but in this particular case, there was 0.
Wow, this is so impressive. Look at you, little dynamic duo over there, changing the face of clinical research. I love this. Now, many people use skincare as a self-care ritual. So I love how not only are these Moodceuticals scientifically built to improve your mood, but the very act of using them is transformative in and of itself, right? So I'll also bring up another clinically proven product, CO2 Lift, which I
Yes.
know you are both familiar with. It's a non-invasive medical grade carboxy gel mask that offers both monotherapy and combo therapy benefits. Similar to XOMD products, the CO2 Lift mask improves texture, tone, and helps reverse the skin's aging process. Dr. Fabi, as a renowned cosmetic derm at the top of your field, how do you see the CO2 Lift mask revolutionizing skincare? And how can it complement the science behind Moodceuticals and the mind-skin connection?
Well, in fact, I do a lot of laser resurfacing as a dermatologist living in Southern California. So this is the only way really sometimes to get rid of all those pesky lines and wrinkles, like the deep-setted lines and wrinkles. But a limitation with something that's so effective is that there's so much downtime. And the wonderful thing about CO2 Lift that I actually took from Steven is that it's able to reduce that downtime so that it gets patients back out there and more confident because they were actually able to embark on the treatment that was going to give them the best result. And so you did the clinical trial. Maybe you want to share that.
Yeah, I did clinical trials in this. And I think this is an old science that the CO2 lift has found a way to harness it and allow us to use it in the topical mask. CO2, when your carbon dioxide levels go up, it actually causes what's called a BOR effect. And a BOR effect means the hemoglobin, your blood cells, are more attracted to the carbon dioxide. It picks up the carbon dioxide and it drops off oxygen in your tissues. So it increases oxygen in your tissues. When you increase oxygen in your tissues, you get more angiogenesis or more blood vessels. You get better flow of blood vessels, greater density of these vessels. And then you start to get improvement. Growth factors are released. And you also get better proteoglycans. So in other words, the building blocks of your skin get reproduced and regenerated. So all these wonderful things happen, and it's nothing new. In the 1930s in France, people who had ulcers and they had open wounds would sit in carboxy baths filled with water. So of course, thank you to the French again to give us some great idea that we now have in CO2 lift that we can put onto our patients topically, and they can wear it before and after undergoing procedures.
Now we're going to talk a little bit more about this clinical trial. So 87% of XOMD users found the opposite sex more attracted, and 90% reported greater sexual satisfaction. You alluded to this earlier, but not to mention in 2 cases, users conceived while using it. Is this accurate?
Okay, so I've been doing
I'm reading these stats and I'm
wait, Zen, we're not going to finish there because we got an anecdote on this on panning. We've been doing studies for years, and I do many studies. I've thousands of patients through clinical trials. I've never had it where 2 people dropped out of a study because they got pregnant
in 4 weeks.
And within 4 weeks, and they're supposed to be wearing double protection. So what is going on here? Now, we are surmising that it improved relationships because the men who were married or partnered with women who were in the study also reported greater sexual satisfaction. We don't talk about that much, but I got to tell you, for Valentine's Day, guys, ditch the flowers, get them XOMD because you're going to have your sexual satisfaction goes up also. So we think there was greater intimacy, and we did interviews afterwards, and they told us there was greater intimacy. And now, since we've launched, we have another.
Yes, my assistant is now pregnant.
What line of work are you in?
So we're not saying that, we just think it improves intimate relationships between people.
Really? I love it. And
I gotta tell you, look,
I'm sure it differs from couple to couple because studies have shown sex to be beneficial to our health. It lowers blood pressure, boosts the immune system, improves sleep, even decreases depression and anxiety. So I'm going to tie this back to CO2 Lift. They also have a vulva rejuvenation product called the CO2 Lift V. And the founder, Londa Kerr, is a huge advocate for sexual health. The importance of intimacy. Dr. Dayan, let's chat this. I know you authored the book Subliminally Exposed, which details the how and why behind our actions when it comes to mating, dating, and communicating. And you often speak about attraction and maintaining intimacy. So given your expertise, how do you see intimacy playing a role in overall well-being? And how do products like XOMD's Moodceuticals and CO2 Lift V contribute to enhancing both that desire and connection between partners? I mean, I know it got people feeling sexier, but what's really at the heart of it all?
These are great questions. And, for many years, this was somewhat taboo, especially in our professional medical field. But the reality is that sex is good for us.
It's great for us.
It releases endorphins. It brings us closer together. When these oxytocin levels go up, you feel better about yourself, but you also feel closer to your partner. You stand closer. There's greater fidelity. It's better for the offspring. We're really, at some core level, we're animalistic, and we can't help it. We have primal urges. And while we can fight them, they're there. And I think we have to accept those primal urges. And when we recognize that when we're attracted to someone, there's something so much more that's going on than just the way they look. We're physically attracted to them and exploring that and developing. And of course, it has to be healthy, but it's really good for you overall. Now, both XOMD and CO2 Lift are opening up and pioneering this field from our aesthetic world. There's a whole sexual health and wellness world, but we're not generally part of it. But now together we're merging, and things like CO2 Lift and us are saying, hey, wait a second, beauty, aesthetics, sexual health, they all kind of interrelate. Where is that connection? And that's what we're finding with these products right now.
Because sex ultimately allows you to feel good, right? And so for a woman, that vulva region, as we age, you can have more pain with intercourse. You may not be as comfortable. You may then start disengaging, which ultimately has an effect, not just in the pleasure of that moment, but also just how you conduct yourself with that relationship day to day. And so if you're able to improve the vulvar area and rejuvenate it to a certain degree, you enjoy intercourse more frequently. You are closer to your partner because of the oxytocin that you're able to release during that intimacy. And that just ends up, if you end up feeling good, you end up looking good. Where historically in aesthetics, we focus more on looking good and that resulting in feeling good. But I think that through your work, that's ultimately what you talked about in your book too, right? It's those that sometimes have that inner feel good that actually look good. And then they may not need the products that we do every single day in our practice to necessarily help them look even better.
And these are such easy at-home modalities that you can be proactive with your life about. And I love that you guys are at the forefront of sexual wellness and demystifying the stigmas that surround both women and men, because these products are used both on women and men. So I love that. So lastly, we're out of time. I could talk to you all day about this. But you have a conference to get to. I'd love to get both your perspectives, not just as top practicing professionals in your field, but also as educators. Why do you believe education is crucial in the aesthetic industry, not only for students and fellow professionals like yourselves, but also for your patients?
Breaks down barriers, defeats prejudice, and it makes us all better for our patients. Ultimately, at the end of the day, that's our job. We pass it on. We're just a vehicle, a vessel that takes knowledge from those before us and passes on to those after us. And it's really a privilege to have people who learn from us. And Sabrina and I have been teaching. We've published over 400 articles. We've been to conferences all around the world, and it's a passion for us. And I think, when they rise, we all rise.
I think education is extremely important because it empowers people about what's possible, about what they can do based on things that our ancestors have studied. And then it also gives us a vehicle in which we can better and advance medicine so that you're empowered through it all, right? I think it's important now more than ever because a lot of people claim to be experts and maybe they haven't done, 4 years of undergrad, 4 years of medical school, and then 5 years of residency training. So it's important to disseminate this information because some of this work, it's reinventing. Some people are trying to reinvent the wheel with education that's already been established, has already been studied, and it's already been out there. So disseminating that is extremely important just as much as the education itself.
I can't thank both of you enough for coming on. I mean, this has been such an inspiring, very transparent and very informational session. I love having the two of you on. You guys are not just amazing as a couple, husband and wife, but just incredible professionals.
Thank you
so much,
really
Zen. Great to be with you.
And we got to get you some XOMD.
That was our Going Deep segment brought to you by CO2 Lift. And that was the incredible powerhouse husband-wife duo, facial plastic surgeon, Dr. Stephen Dayan, and board-certified dermatologist, Dr. Sabrina Fabi. Definitely check out their Moodceutical Skincare line at XOMDskin.com. And you can check them out on the gram at XOMD Skin. And you can stay up to date with Dr. Dayan at Dr. Stephen Dayan, spelled Dayan, and Dr. Fabi at Sabrina.Fabi, Fabi. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by CO2 Lift. As we age, our skin loses moisture and elasticity, causing wrinkled skin. You can reverse this aging process with CO2 Lift. CO2 Lift utilizes the powerful benefits of carbon dioxide to lift, tighten, and regenerate your skin. This simple, painless at-home carboxytherapy treatment is scientifically proven to reverse the aging process. You will see reduction in wrinkles, increase in luminosity, and improve pigmentation, sagging, skin tone, and radiance.
For more information or to order CO2 Lift, ask your skincare professional or go to co2lift.com.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Your Home TV with Kathy Ireland and their channel partners. Head to yourhometv.com for free, family-friendly programming, streaming 24/7.
The Kelly Williams Show is brought to you by Serendipity Yacht Cruises and Events. Tune in and turn on your happy. Kelly Williams is full of energy and incredible guests. Watch her anytime, free programming on Your Home TV network, and do follow her on social media for a chance to win monthly prizes. Check out The Kelly Williams Show on yourhometv.com.
Tune in to A Moment of Zen, Saturday nights from 9 to 10 p.m. on 710 WOR, the voice of New York.
Welcome back, beautiful tri-state area. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Welcome back to another polished beauty segment. And as always, we're joined by my brilliant co-contributor, Dr. Daisy Aim. She's a triple board certified cosmetic surgeon and OBGYN who brings her medical expertise to the forefront of beauty, wellness, health, and brains. Today, the topic is one that many of us experience, but just rarely talk about: high-functioning depression. You know the feeling. You're juggling a successful career, social life, responsibilities, yet something feels off. You're exhausted, emotionally drained, maybe even just disconnected. But on the outside, you look like you have it all together. Well, our guest today has put a name to the silent struggle and is giving people the tools to reclaim their joy. She's a board certified psychiatrist, researcher, and award winning mental health advocate. Her book, High Functioning: Overcome Your Hidden Depression and Reclaim Your Joy, hit shelves April 8th, and it's already making waves. Welcoming now to the show is the incredible Dr. Judith Joseph. Welcome, superstar.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Dr. Daisy, so excited to have you back on.
Of course. Welcome, Dr. Judith. I can't wait to hear so much about this book.
It's nice to meet you both.
This is a hard topic for many, but let's talk about the glorification of overwork. Hustle culture trains us to believe that exhaustion is the price of success. And because of that, so many people overlook their mental health struggles. Nearly 1 in 10 adults in the US experience depression, maybe even more, but many just don't seek treatment because they don't recognize their symptoms as depression. They chalk it up to stress, burnout, or just pushing through. So let's start with the basics. How do we differentiate between regular stress and what you define as high functioning depression? And why do so many high achievers fall into this category?
That's a great question. Stress is actually part of the typical human experience. We need stress. Without stress, healthy stress, we wouldn't get up in the morning, we wouldn't go to work, we wouldn't do things that we need to do to survive. However, unhealthy stress is when the worrying and the pressures of life start to wear and tear on our mind, on our body, on our quality of life. So when healthy stress crosses over to unhealthy stress, that could lead to things like depression, anxiety, burnout, substance abuse. But high functioning depression is different than typical depression because in high functioning people, they have all of the symptoms of depression. But instead of breaking down or exhibiting significant distress, they actually overfunction. They cope by busying themselves. So when they're sitting still, they feel restless. When they're not busy, they feel empty. And they don't know what this unpleasant feeling is, which is anhedonia. So they just keep moving and being busy. And before you know it, you're a human doing, not a human being.
Wow. That distinction right there is so crucial because that between burnout and high functioning depression, that's so critical. We've all been conditioned to believe that exhaustion is just the price of ambition. But what you're saying is that it's actually a warning sign that something deeper, much deeper is going on. And that's a total paradigm shift. And I love that you're addressing this in a way that makes mental health more nuanced. It's not black or white. It's about recognizing the gray areas where we can make changes before things escalate. So brava to you.
Well, burnout wasn't added into the diagnostic manual only until recently, right? It only got added about 10, 15 years ago. But none of us would ever say, oh, it didn't exist before you put it in the coding book, right? We knew it always existed, but people weren't recognizing it. And burnout, by definition, is an occupational hazard. So the situation at work, the work environment, that's causing the overwhelm, the lack of concentration, the irritability, the exhaustion. But technically, if it's true burnout, once you leave that environment, you should feel better, right? You should be refreshed, you should be restored and made whole. The difference between burnout and high functioning depression is that when you remove the person who has high functioning depression out of the work situation, they still can't be still. They still find other things to do. They'll busy themselves with their church. They'll busy themselves with their kids. They'll take on all these responsibilities or start a side hustle. They just can't sit still. They have this inner restlessness. And a lot of them experience something called anhedonia, which is a lack of pleasure and interest in things. So, for example, if you used to really enjoy your favorite food, let's say sushi, and you're eating sushi and you're like, you just eat it just to survive. Or you used to really enjoy your favorite music, your song. You used to dance to it, but now you're like, it's all right. That's anhedonia. And it is the silent red flag that you may have high functioning depression and you don't realize it. Because most people, when they think depression, they think crying, not getting out of bed. They're not thinking busy, productive person who walks around feeling dull or mute. They say, oh, that's not a problem. The only people who are really issues are people we have to take care of who are in crisis, but we're missing the majority of us who have symptoms of depression. If we wait for us to break down, then we're missing out on a whole host of people that we could potentially prevent a breakdown in.
So your book introduces the 5 V's, which I love: validation, venting, values, vitals, and vision. Which one do people struggle with the most, and how can they start implementing it today to improve?
Dr. Daisy, I think that validation is the hardest, the most difficult one for people who are high functioning. Why? I spoke at a conference recently with all these high powered women, and women who have it all. And I asked these women who have it all, how many of you have sat through meetings and you really had to pee, but you didn't? And they all started laughing. There was not one person in that room who didn't do that, right? Because why? They invalidate their bodies all the time. How many of us have been sitting at a desk and our neck hurts and our wrist hurts, but we keep typing away, or our eyes really hurt and we don't want to be on that meeting, but we still press it, right? We invalidate how we feel all the time. So validation tends to be the hardest one. And it's because a lot of people with high functioning depression have learned early in their lives to just push down how they're feeling and not accept and acknowledge how they feel, to just get through, to just continue being pathologically productive. So I spend a lot of time helping people with validation. And I liken it to, what if you're in this room and you hear a big crash, right? And you're looking around, but it's dark. There's no one had turned the lights on. Some people will go running, some people will start swinging. You turn the light on, and you see, oh, that was just a vase that fell. You're like, oh, I feel better. When we identify our feelings and accept our feelings, it's like turning the light on, and it's like feeling better and feeling less stressed, because humans don't like uncertainty. So if we can pinpoint how we feel and accept how we feel, that act is therapeutic and anti-anxiety provoking in itself.
Wow. Some thought-provoking answers there.
Yeah.
So, Dr. Judith, we've all heard the phrase listen to your body. But what I love about your work is that you take it a step further, helping people listen to their emotions too. For me, that's everything. You talk about the 6 vitals: the work-life balance, the sleep, relationship, diet, movement, and technology use. Now, let's be honest, half of us are guilty of doom scrolling at 2 and 3 a.m. when we should be sleeping. And that brings me to my next question. What are some of the biggest warning signs that our vitals are off? And what's one small but powerful change we can make today to start reclaiming our joy?
Well, the vitals that most doctors will tell you to look out for, and Dr. Daisy will agree, are getting good movement, getting, good nutrition, less inflammatory foods, less artificial foods, getting good sleep. But there are 3 vital signs that most healthcare providers neglect, and I'm going to teach you how to identify them. The first is the quality of your relationships. The longevity science these days says that the quality of your relationships is the number one predictor of your longevity. That means if you're with someone toxic or in a toxic relationship, they are literally draining your life force. So think about that. Number 2 is your relationship with technology. I truly believe that in the future, there's going to be a whole category of conditions in mental health dedicated to how technology impacts our brain. They're already studying it. At Stanford, they have an entire Zoom fatigue center where that's all they study. How, like, looking at yourself during a Zoom meeting, how unnatural it is. When you talk to someone in real life, you don't see what you look like. There's something very unnatural about it. Yeah. And doom scrolling, that's being studied because what we found is that doom scrolling is higher in women, and it's higher in people who survived trauma. And if you think about it, one of the unknown trauma responses that most people don't know, people think flashback nightmares, but one of the unknown symptoms is trying to control outcomes. So what you do is you put yourself in a situation where you're basically being re-traumatized to kind of control the outcome, to see if you can make a difference. So when we watch things online and we're putting ourselves back into these painful situations where we're getting exposure to traumas because we're looking at all these negative things, it's our brain's way of trying to control an outcome. So it's a trauma response. And if we knew that, then we would limit our exposure to things that are traumatizing, right? But it becomes a vicious cycle. And the third uncommon vital sign is work-life boundaries. People with high functioning depression have very unhealthy relationship with work. Their identity is all tied up in their role. They don't know who they are without their role. You ask them, what do you do? Who are you? They talk about their work. They don't talk about their values. So there's this real identity shift that needs to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I 100% agree with you. Doc, with more people turning to social media, it's everywhere. It's who doesn't have social media? And, some people are using it as advice. They go there and they take information. What would you recommend or have them be mindful of when they log on the social media platforms to receive mental health advice?
Well, I'm a part of this team with the WHO, the World Health Organization, called the FIDES influencers, where we are all people who are licensed. They have to prove your license, they have to vet you and look at all your training. And the reason they recruited us, I felt like I was being recruited to like the MI6 or something, but because it's all international and it's super vetted, and you're like, what is this? But it's really to make sure that you're able to provide information to counter misinformation. There's just so much misinformation out there. And so as a team, we all talk about how to combat misinformation to make sure that the relevant information gets the platform. But it's sad because the misinformation tends to be more fun to watch, right? Like, and there's nothing wrong with people sharing their stories. I truly believe that when people share their personal stories about their conditions and provide their experiences, it can decrease stigma, and we need people who are not, healthcare professionals to do that. But it becomes very, very dangerous when people start to use their story as the gold standard, which is like, this is what you should do because I did it, because that's just not the case. And as a physician, I've seen so many treatment successes, but I've also seen so many treatments where things didn't turn out the way that neither of us wanted to, right? So I have this knowledge of what's worked, what's not worked, how to be careful in language. There's a reason our brains are worth like $1 million of training, right? Because we have seen so many things. So we're capable of providing information. So what I would tell people is if you're looking at a health influencer, go to wherever their state they're supposedly working out of, and just look it up. It's all public record. See if they're licensed, see if they've had any, nicks against their license, because some people have had issues because of medical malpractice, right? And see whether or not they're trained in what you're looking for. Just because someone's a doctor doesn't mean they know, how to treat certain things, right? They may not know certain skin conditions. They may not know certain heart conditions. They may have one tiny role. I often see people who are like GI doctors talking about things they have no business talking about, right? So like, make sure you look them up and that you're getting reputable information. And if a doctor or a healthcare professional isn't putting a disclaimer, like, make sure this is not your medical advice, make sure you talk to someone else, then that's a problem as well. Because, what happens online, it could be good information, but it's not the same thing as treatment.
Yeah.
Good point.
That is an excellent point. And I think it really drives in the fact that you have some of these large voices on this platform, but when you dig deeper, there's no actual interaction or clinical experience or anything like a Google review or health grade or anything to really back who they are that they claim to be with such a huge platform. So thank you for bringing that up.
Of course.
Now, Dr. Judith, one thing that really struck me about your book is how often people mistake productivity for emotional well-being. I mean, think about it, right? If someone is hitting all their professional goals and managing a social life and keeping up appearances, it's easy to assume they're fine. But what you're saying is that high-functioning depression hides behind that illusion of success. So my question is, what are some of the most surprising symptoms of high-functioning depression that people tend to overlook?
In my research, because I published the only peer-reviewed clinical study on high-functioning depression in the world, in my research, I found that there was a correlation between trauma and HFD. So one of the common trauma responses is avoidance, but not in the classic way that you think of like a combat veteran not wanting to go to a certain area because it triggers them. Avoiding can be busying yourself, jamming your schedule so you don't have to think about anything painful, so you don't have to reflect. And a lot of people, they can't sit still because they're running from something that they haven't processed. And I've seen this in my clinical practice. A lot of people who on the outside look very successful, they come to me and they're like, I have everything. I have the family, I have the home, I have everything, the career. I should be happy, but something's off. And they have anhedonia. They don't enjoy things. And then we work our way back and we find out that there was an unprocessed trauma and they just forgot how to actually tap into joy. They have this different definition. They're chasing this idea of happy, right? I will be happy when I have the house, I have the car, I have the man, I have the family, but they're still not happy. They keep chasing it. versus missing out on joy because they're so busy. Joy is the experience in the daily moments. It's
Yeah.
if you're tired, getting rest. If you're hungry, feeling satisfied. If you're lonely, feeling connected, right? If you're uninspired, feeling like motivated. All of those are basic points of joy. And when you add them up, that leads to what in research we call happiness. But most people who come to you in private practice, they're like, I just want to be happy. And we're like, no, we're just trying to get you more points of joy. And another point of joy people neglect is feeling relaxed. On all of our depression research scales, we'll ask, are you soothed? Are you tense? And people get, oh, well, isn't that anxiety? Well, actually being relaxed and not stressed is a point of joy. But many of us are so busy and overwhelmed, we can't access joy because we're so tense. We're so anxious.
Yeah. That's eye-opening because we've been trained to believe that as long as we're getting things done, we must be okay, right? But what you're showing us is that feeling disconnected, emotionally detached, or even just constantly exhausted can be major red flags. And I love how you highlight that these aren't just feelings, they're actual symptoms that deserve attention. That's a really powerful shift in perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah, we chase the price tags, but the things that make us really joyful are the things that are priceless, right? The price
Yeah.
tags are the bag, the shoes, which are all nice to have, the home. But at the end of the day, on your deathbed, you're not going to be like, I wish I had another Birkin. You're going to be like, I wish I had 5 minutes with the ones I love. That's what I want to snuggle with. Nobody's going to be snuggling with a Birkin, right?
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Doc, what advice do you have for people that feel guilty prioritizing mental health, especially those who believe taking a break means they're failing? I mean, some careers like ours, we are trained and conditioned to think and behave a certain way. And anything out of that perspective, you're perceived as failure or inadequate or incompetent. So, what advice do you have for those?
In our profession, I was an anesthesiologist before I switched to psychiatry. But even in medical school, we are exposed to so much trauma. We see so much death. We see so much pain. But no one pulls us aside and says, oh, how are you doing? Like, take some time to process it. It's like, okay, what did you learn from that case? What did you do wrong? What did you do right? And sometimes you're actually shamed, if you don't know what to do, if you have no answers, if you're still like, in fight or flight from what you just saw, right? You're seen as weak. So we have this very military type training in our approach to patient care. And many of us, the healers, are unhealed. And one of the symptoms of trauma is actually internalizing blame and shame. When I do my PTSD studies, my post traumatic stress disorder studies, there are 30 plus symptoms of trauma, but most general people don't know that. And one of the symptoms is shame, blame, feeling not good enough, feeling unworthy. So if we have this unprocessed trauma, no wonder healthcare professionals are running around like a chicken with their head cut off, right? Constantly taking shifts, constantly doing this and that, not eating, not taking care of themselves. Doctors are the worst patients. They don't have good health, right? Because of that, I don't feel worthy, because they don't feel as if they should slow down, because they feel guilty if they actually think about themselves before a patient, right? So the healers are unhealed. And that's why I wrote this book, because when you go to your doctor and you just ask them about your symptoms of depression and you're not functioning, they're going to help you. But if they ask you, are you functioning? They're going to say, well, come back when you've broken down. And that is a broken model, right? Because a lot of the healers are having these symptoms and they're over functioning. So they don't see it as a problem, because that would be admitting to themselves that they have a problem, right? They don't want to diagnose something that they see in themselves. So we need to change the way we approach mental health. There's a longevity boom now. We don't say, wait till the cancer's at stage 4. We say, catch it before it even starts. We don't say, wait till you have a full-blown heart attack. We say, no, prevent heart disease. We need to do the same for mental health. Let's prevent high-functioning people from breaking down.
Wow.
So, Dr. Judith, well, you're a very high accomplished physician and your accolade is impeccable. And one thing about the Polished Beauty podcast, the tagline is where ambition meets empowerment. So you're clearly both of them. I want to know if there's one thing, that one bold moment or situation that has led you to be here, what would it be to give our audience?
Well, I had this moment at my desk in 2020. I was just inducted into this elite Ivy League board of women, and I was the youngest member of the board. And then at that time, my lab was flourishing. I own my own lab in Midtown, have 10 women scientists under me. So like things look really great. Um, and then I had this cute little kid at home, the perfect doctor husband, but people had no idea I was struggling. Like my whole personal life was falling apart. And I just remember sitting at the desk, giving this talk to this large healthcare system, and just halfway through being like, oh my God, I think I'm depressed. Like, how did this happen? It just snuck up on me. And I was experiencing anhedonia. And I thought, I study anhedonia and depression for a living. Like, how did this happen? But then I thought, well, there must be so many other people like me who just don't even know what it is. And it sneaks up on them. So I want people to know what it is so they don't feel surprised when they wake up one day and they're like, why do I feel this way? That they have the term, that they understand that there are ways to cope, that this is not just being a human. Human beings were built with the DNA for joy. We have it built literally into our DNA, right? Like, so that's why we have dopamine. And that's why I developed the 5 Vs, because most of us have 5 fingers. And I want you to know that when you validate how you feel and you accept it and you vent and express it, and you tap into values that bring you meaning and purpose, and you take care of your body with your vitals, and you plan joy in the future with your vision, you can hold on and reclaim that joy, because joy is our birthright. We have it. We just don't know how to access it.
Wow. Joy is our birthright. I love that. That's it. I'm signing that. Joy is my birthright.
Yes, that's your answer to saying no to when people ask you about crossing your boundaries. I'm sorry. Joy is my birthright, honey. I can't do that right now.
That's right.
Well, what an enlightening and empowering segment. That was great. For anyone listening and watching, you can grab your copy of High Functioning, Overcome Your Hidden Depression and Reclaim Your Joy. It was out April 8th, but it's directly available on the website at highfunctioningbook.com, or you can also head to drjudithjoseph.com, and do check her out on the gram at Dr. Judith Joseph. And of course, a huge thanks to my incredible, brilliant co-contributor, Dr. Daisy Aim. Thank you so much for always bringing your expertise and insight. Definitely check out Dr. Daisy at the Polished Beauty Podcast. And that's a wrap for the Polished Beauty segment. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by the Polished Beauty Podcast with Dr. Daisy Aim. Hey, ambitious women, ready to shine on the inside and out? Tune in to the Polished Beauty Podcast, where we talk about business, beauty, brains, and body all in one spot. Meet Dr. Daisy Aim, triple board certified cosmetic surgeon, pro-aging advocate, fitness enthusiast, and your go-to for real talk on leveling up every part of your life. The Polished Beauty Podcast is your dose of ambition meets empowerment. For more information, head to polishedbeautypodcast.com.
A Moment of Zen is sponsored by FinTech TV.
FinTech TV, the newest streaming channel focused exclusively on the business of blockchain, digital assets, and sustainability. Broadcasting from our studio on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange with daily reports from NASDAQ, global expansion, and 24/7 coverage. Become part of the launch. Head to fintech.tv/invest. fintech.tv/invest.
Tune in to A Moment of Zen Saturday nights from 9 to 10 p.m. on 710 WOR, the voice of New York.
Hi, I'm Vince Molinari, and welcome to FinTech TV. We're broadcasting from the iconic New York Stock Exchange, and I'd like to welcome Chris Ruddy, who is the founder and CEO of Newsmax Inc. Chris, welcome to the New York Stock Exchange, at least on FinTech TV. I know you had a great IPO this week. So much to talk about, but I am thrilled to welcome you to the show today.
Well, thank you. I'm really glad to be on. FinTech is getting a tremendous reputation, so I'm glad to be on with you.
Well, Chris, truly that means so much coming from you, as you've been a trailblazer, fellow Long Islanders, Catholic high school participants together, watching what you've created in the media space, endured the entrepreneurial growth pains, all the things that we experience, and be doing it in media and pioneered the way you do. You've really been an inspiration and a model for us here at FinTech TV, so it's an extra thrill to have you on today.
Well, you guys, you're reporting stuff that the rest of the media aren't reporting, and I think the Newsmax story is really a great story that just is not getting. The Financial Times did a story yesterday. We have a link on newsmax.com to it, where they said, Newsmax has got a really impressive story. It's a very credible company. It's going to make lots of money. It's got a lot of way to make money with the way cable license fees work and everything else. But they said our strategy is a good one. And that was from the Financial Times. We had to go to England to get that.
Well, let's get into that a little bit, right? When you get the validation of a Financial Times from abroad, giving you that seal of approval, saying, hey, done right, there's a lot here. What do we have to do differently here stateside? How do we get media out there to continue to grow and get messaging out that's important to communities?
Well, what's great is the old gatekeepers are going, right? The distribution points. Now, we love cable. It's been a market we're growing into. It's constricting, but we believe live news and sports will still do really well, and we're part of that. People will be very robust for at least 10 years. But we're in the streaming side. We're in the OTT platforms, the DigiNets on broadcast. All of that's going to be the future. And so we're doing both, and you're doing this as well. So it's great. And I think there'll be other technologies coming up, too, that will be impacting broadcasting and the way information is disseminated. And we want to be there we're reaching about 40 million Americans right now.
Wow, that's
it's a big
impressive
number.
That's a huge number, and I think maybe the fourth largest in the country when we look at that.
Yeah. Well, of cable channels, and according to the Nielsen coverage rating, we're number 7 of all cable channels, which is amazing.
That's
I mean, there's hundreds of cable channels. The other thing is the Reuters Institute came out with a study last year which said that there are only 12 top U.S. news media brands, and Newsmax was one of them. And they're all billion-dollar companies for the most part, and we're now joining that club, and it's, I think, appropriate. We came out with a market cap of $1.1 billion. The market's saying we value Newsmax. We see its potential. The shares have gone up. They're settling down a little bit, which is good. But, my focus is going to be on the company results, not the share price.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Your Home TV with Kathy Ireland and their channel partners. Head to yourhometv.com for free, family-friendly programming, streaming 24/7.
In business and in life, there's always an upside. Finding it is often the challenge. Having a mindset that looks for it and embraces problems as opportunities is the key to thriving. Finding the Upside with Maria de Lorenzo Reyes explores the transformative power of optimism, featuring visionary business owners, influential leaders, and inspiring everyday people. Tune in and see how they navigate changing conditions with optimism and innovation. Watch the special series One Tough Chick, highlighting resilient and powerful women, streaming on yourhometv.com.
Tune in to A Moment of Zen, Saturday nights from 9 to 10 p.m. on 710 WOR, the voice of New York.
Well, that's a wrap, my dear friends. Remember to join me right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, every Saturday night from 9 to 10 p.m. Or you could head to 710WOR.iHeart.com/A Moment of Zen. And also remember that we're live on Traverse TV Sundays at 1 p.m. Eastern. Definitely download the free app, and it's free programming to you. You can also find us on our YouTube channel Sundays at 2 p.m. And all episodes of A Moment of Zen are available on Your Home TV and Kathy Ireland worldwide streaming platform. You could head directly to our channel at mox.yourhometv.com. Thank you for listening to us. It's been an absolute pleasure being your host. Thanks again to all of our sponsors that continue to make this show possible. And remember that happiness is the only thing that multiplies when you share it. We'll be back next week.